to stand because it's just one scripture. Proverbs 3 and 5, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding." Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not on thine own understanding. This lesson is about trusting in the Lord. So, Susanna, you can retire. Okay, this is a little illustration here. What if you were a millionaire and needed someone to manage your assets? Whom would you trust? What if you could no longer care for your children? Who would you trust to properly care for them? I think Sister Mouse told me one time she's got all kinds of kids. Is that right? Yeah, she's got all kinds of kids. She's a what do they call those? A fairy grandmother or something? Fairy godmother. Anyway, or what if you really needed someone to confide in? Who would it be? One of the most difficult things in life for people to do is relinquish control to someone else. Further difficulty comes when we are asked to totally depend on that person to lead us. This is also the case when it comes to our trust in God. Often we find it difficult to relinquish control to Him and completely depend on Him to lead us and guide us. The Bible teaches us that we should learn to wait on God. The primary purpose of this waiting is not to teach us patience, but rather to teach us trust. So that poses the question, why should we trust in God? That's kind of an easy for me, but it explains it here in this lesson. Number one, He is concerned for you. That is a pretty good reason to trust in God. His concern for you is genuine, and genuine concern is hard to find. How many can agree with that? We know people that can be very fickle with true feelings. One day they seem as if they truly care, and the next they seem as if you don't exist. We all know people like that. The truth of the matter is we need someone who is concerned about us, and God is. 1 Peter 5 and 7 tells us that you should cast all your cares or anxieties upon Him because He cares about you. The word anxieties accompanies not only anxieties but also your worries, your fears, and cares. So one of the key words here is all. Casting all your cares. All holds nothing back but gives everything to God. We all know what all means. And why should we do this? And the answer is because He cares for you. Matthew 6 and 8 lets us know that the Lord knows what we have need of before we even ask. The Word further tells us that the very hairs on our head are numbered. Your days are numbered. He knows your down sitting and your uprising. So God knows everything about you. So if I was to confide in anyone, I would confide in someone who knows everything about me already. So anything I tell them wouldn't be a surprise. Oh, you did that? Good night, man. Lord, don't tell me anymore. That's enough. See, God knows everything about you, and He's concerned about you. Whatever you are concerned with, He is concerned with. So that's also another deal about genuine concern is I can care about somebody, but if I don't care about nobody is going to care about everything that somebody else cares about. It's and if they do, that's kind of hard to find someone like that. But God is like that, and that is a good reason why we should trust in God. Another reason is He is capable. How many know He is capable? Wouldn't it be wonderful if every time we went to the doctor or the bank or the mechanic or anywhere and there was never a time where He didn't say, "Oh, there's no cure." There's always going to be times where, "Oh, we can't fix this, sir. The piston blew right through your engine block. You're going to have to buy a whole new engine." Or a lot of times you go to the doctor and they say there's no cure for this. And that's impossible to find consistency like that on the earth. But God is able to do anything, and we know that. Life isn't like that. All too often we are told there is no fix, no cure, and no repair. That is not the case with God. God is capable for helping with each and every circumstance or situation in your life. Everything that you have need of, He is able and willing to do. Luke 1:37 says, "For nothing is impossible with God." I read that today, and I was reading the little things underneath here, and I got a new meaning out of this. Nothing is impossible for God. There's no sickness or disease or heartache, no stress, situation, circumstance that He cannot change. So nothing is impossible to God. So also, I explained this earlier to myself. Nothing, for God to do nothing would be impossible. Using nothing as a verb, nothing is impossible for God. Ephesians 3:20-1 states, "Now unto Him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or even think, according to the power that worketh in us." We are not talking about I'm going to see if I can hold it differently, but I can't. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. We aren't talking about a weak, anemic God who can barely meet the needs of His creation. We're talking about a God who can not only meet the need, but can also go above and beyond the minimum answer and maximum answer. He does this by His power that works in us, if the power that gives us the confidence to trust Him with everything in our life. There's an illustration here. James Brown says here, not the singer, but a pastor of Evangeline Baptist Church in Wildsville, Louisiana. I don't know. I've heard this illustration very recently, so I don't know if Justin used this or what happened. So you probably already have read this, but I read it again, and it really goes with this. There is no situation that I cannot get into that God cannot get me out of. Some years ago, when I was learning, not me, this is James Brown talking. When I was learning to fly, my instructor told me to put the plane into a steep, extended dive, and I was totally unprepared for what was about to happen. After a brief time, the engine stalled and the plane began to plunge out of control. That's kind of scary. I've flown a plane one time. My door fell open. That was scary. I didn't go back after that. I want to, though. After a brief time, the engine stalled and the plane began to plunge out of control. It soon became very evident that the instructor was not going to help me at all. After a few seconds, which seemed like an eternity, my brain actually began to function again, and I quickly corrected the situation. Immediately, I turned to the instructor and began to vent my fearful frustrations. That's what I did when my door flew open. I was like, "Why did my door open up?" She said, "Well, it's a 1973 plane, and it's just really old." Yeah, really, I was like, this place is awesome. He very calmly said to me, "There is no position that you can get this airplane into that I cannot get it out of." So no matter what position we get our life into, no matter what circumstance we find ourselves into, no matter what thing we see ourselves in, God, there's nothing that we can get ourselves into that God cannot get us out of. And that is a awesome reason to use God as somebody you trust in. And obviously that is the only person really that the main thing we need to trust in. Another reason that we should trust God is that He is consistent. That's what I like about McDonald's. They're consistent. Anywhere you go, any McDonald's you go to, all their snack wraps taste like snack wraps. You go to Taco Bell, and you get a beefy 5-layer, go to another Taco Bell and get a beefy 5-layer, and it's just not the same. McDonald's just, I don't know, they figured it out. Everything, it's very consistent. Remember when a man's handshake was his bond? Remember the days when you could trust folks to do what they said? Times and people have changed since then. Hebrews 13:8 declares Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. A friend can agree with you on certain things one day and a couple of days later wouldn't agree with you on the same thing, because God is the most consistent thing on the planet, because His Word declares that He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change. He doesn't change. How many people do you know that you could say the same thing about? None. None. Yeah, I already know the answer to that. Corinthians 1:9 states God is faithful. Notice it does not say that God's faithfulness is predicated upon what anything else does. God is faithful whether we're faithful or not. So whether we're messing up or whether we're doing great, doesn't matter. God's faithful. When should we trust in God? Real trust in God is a relationship built on the understanding that He deserves and is worthy of our trust in all things. Real trust in God is a relationship built on the understanding that He deserves and is worthy of our trust in all things. And big things and little things, it doesn't matter what things. I can trust God for little things. When it comes with big things, I get doubts. And everybody does. I don't act like you're super spiritual. When bad things happen, it takes more to trust in God, and that's everybody can agree with that. Trust in Him. Trust Him in times of adversity. There's two times when we should trust Him: in adversity and in time of plenty. No matter what time of your life, you need to trust in God. We all have times of adversity. It is during these times that our trust is put to the test. Adversity many times causes us to fear. If we really truly had a trust for God, we wouldn't fear of anything. We really wouldn't. If we truly had a genuine trust in God, the one who holds everything in His hand, who holds your life and is in control of everything, if we trusted and we understood that, and it's probably impossible to fully trust in God to the point where we have absolutely no fear of anything, but to have perfect trust in God means you don't have fear of anything because you know God's in control. Whether what ends up is bad or what ends up is good, it's in the will of God. If we know that, then we shouldn't have a fear of anything. Psalms 3:6 says, I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. David said, if 10,000 people were against me, I wouldn't be afraid because I know who's in control. I know who's got my life. I know that God holds my destiny. Psalms 23:4, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because you're with me. Because I know that God is never going to leave me, that God's always here, and I can trust in God, and I know that God can pull me out of anything that I get myself into. So if I find myself in the valley of the shadow of death, I won't fear because I know that you're with me. I know that you have the other yoke in your hand, that you can steer me out of this situation. Psalms 27:1, the Lord is my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Now, the book of Psalms is littered with scriptures just like that. No matter what situation I find myself into, I will trust in God. I know I won't be afraid of anything because I know that God is with me. David further said in Psalms 56:4, for in God I trust. I will not be afraid. It's a principle, a biblical principle, and it's common sense also. that if you trust in God, that you won't have fear. What David is saying is that we are responsible to trust and obey God. While this sounds good, it actually is a very difficult thing to do in some areas in our lives. Like I said before, we are usually willing to trust God with the easy, mundane things. But what about when it comes to an area of our life where it seems beyond our understanding and out of control? Things that we have control of, like a flat tire. You know, not every time you get a flat tire, it's the devil, by the way. Well, we were told that in Bible college a lot. You know, the devil is trying to do something to me, but flat tires just happen sometimes. That's just life. I haven't had a flat tire. That's good stuff. It is then when those big things happen. It is then when we want control and ask God, how are you going to work things out if we turn? How is He going to work things out if we turn them over to Him? What He wants us to do at all times, at those times, is to trust and obey Him. Trust would have no value if we could not work everything out or had all the answers. If we could work out everything and everything was in our hands and we had control over everything, then the trust really has no value. God will use adversity to teach us to trust Him. Job is a prime example. God, in the life of Job, we find an excellent example of trust in adversity. Job was as human as you and I are, and he had the same dreams and hopes, questions, and fears that we all do. During Job's trials, he was confronted with his weakness and his need to trust God. Listen to his statements of trust in God as I read through these scriptures. In Job 13:15, I believe it's Job. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain mine own ways before him. It says, naked, and Job 1:21, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked I shall return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Trust Him in times of plenty. It's also true and important to understand here that Job blessed the name of God even when his life was a wreck. Because he knows that God's in control. He knows that God is doing what He's doing. And a lot of times, if you just praise Him and bless His name, that is when God is really going to intervene. Like Paul and Silas in the jail cell, they trusted in God, so they sang praises unto God, and at the midnight hour, the walls fell down and the door was open and they were set free, because God inhabits the praises of His people, and He's going to go wherever His praises are. So it's important to bless God, and that's also a sign of trust. God knows that you trust Him is if in the deepest, blackest part of your time, and you can kneel down and you can bless God and praise Him for who He is and what He's done, and thank Him and for being in control, being in control of your situation. Trust Him in times of plenty. Is important that we mature in our relationship of trust to the point that we trust Him when things are good in our life. There is a very real risk of becoming self-dependent as God blesses us. That's true. Too many folks trust God in adversity only to have Him help them, and then after that they don't need God anymore. They don't need to trust God anymore because their life is perfect. In the please me, hedonistic world that we live in, people fall in love with the blessing more than the one who actually blesses. And that's so true. How many times do we get on our knees and we ask God to bless us before we bless Him? Before we think about how awesome it is to have a God that will bless us. Remember, Job said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. There is not a material blessing that we possess that we are guaranteed of having forever. In a moment's time, we can lose everything that we have. That's why it's important to count everything that you already have as though it's already gone. Because if you do that, then that's another fear destroyer, is counting everything that you have as though it's already gone. If my vehicles outside, if I count those as, if I know that those are God's, and I know that God is in control of my life, then I'm not going to be afraid to lose them, because I know that God knows where I'm at. He knows what I need, and I don't need a vehicle to survive. I have parents and grandparents. And if you don't have those, or friends or family members, and then you have a church. So that's a good thing about being in a church. You definitely get help from other people. It's important to have people in your life. It is the fact that Job continually built an altar during the times of plenty that sustained him during the times of adversity. When it's the same principle for when what's his name? Coat of many colors, dude. Joseph. Yeah, brothers. Some of you get that. If you watch the video of the Joseph story, that's brothers sitting around the campfire. Let's go destroy them, brothers. But it's the same thing. The king Pharaoh had a dream that and Joseph interpreted it. That there was going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. So in the 7 years of plenty, they didn't just eat it all up, and they stored. They worked hard to trust in that those times are going to come. These perilous times are going to come. So I'm going to store up my trust and my prayers to God, my altars to God. And this is what this is saying here. Job had many years of plenty. He was a very wealthy man, and all that time he wasn't. He had a trust for God, and he prayed to God, and he feared God, and all those times were able to help him through the other time. And the same thing. When the days of plenty or the days of famine came, that actually ended up being the rise of Egypt, is getting all the money that they got from selling the grain to the people who needed it. So as long as we're building trust in times of plenty, because when bad times will come, Pastor says it all the time. If you haven't gone through a bad time yet, just wait. It's definitely coming. The following scriptures tell us the blessings of trusting God. Psalms 5:11 says, "But let all those rejoice who put their trust in you. Let them ever shout for joy because you defended them." Psalms 37:5, "Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass," whatever it is. Psalms 125:1 says, "They that trust in the Lord shall be as Mount Zion, who cannot be removed, but abideth forever." Trusting in God is one of the key, and these are this series of lessons is on wisdom. And so trusting in God is a very wise thing to do, is to trust in God, because having less fear in your life helps it go by a lot smoother. It's like redoing a road. When you start to trust in God, you feel like you came from the Grimes County line to the Montgomery County line on the road. You know, it's good. Oh, I'm closing now. I don't know how we're ending this. I didn't speak with anybody about that. Tim Hansel, in his book Holy Sweat, recounts the following story. One day, while my son Zach and I were out of the country, this is the one that I heard, climbing climbing around in some cliffs, and I heard a voice from above me yell, "Hey, Dad, catch me." I turned around to see Zach joyfully jumping off of the rock and straight at me. Like he turned around and his kid's jumping down on top of him from this cliff. He had jumped and then yelled, "Hey, Dad." I became an instant circus act. Catching him, we both fell to the ground. For a moment after I caught him, I couldn't hardly talk. When I found my voice again, I gasped and gasped. "Zach, can you give me one good reason why you did that?" And he responded with a remarkable calmness, "Sure, because you're my dad." And if we could all have the same trust that Zach had in his dad, and we can all have that same trust in our Heavenly Father, then we won't be afraid of anything that could be scary, but that we wouldn't be fearful of anything, and if we just trust God. And I'm done, but it's important to trust God. If you could stand with me.